Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Design Community Call number 33. And it's kind of crazy that we've done 32 of these already. They're like, I really can't believe it. It's kind of wild. You would have noticed that the usual voice is not here. Papa Christoph, he's enjoying some well-deserved rest and relaxation. We got to help each other out. So whilst Christoph's away, Johnson Stephen will play. But yeah, I'm gonna go into some of the news and stuff that we published on the newsletter like earlier today. Please, you guys should subscribe because we take a lot of time to write it, and it was giving me a lot of stress to find content for it this week. There was a lot going on, but I've been kind of busy with some other stuff.
Yeah. One thing before you go into the
Mm,
news, Johns, I just want to interject with real quick is that, I'm scanning through the room here and it looks like we have some new faces, new profile pictures I haven't seen before. So I just want to give a quick introduction to what this is before you go into the news. So
perfect,
this
Ron.
is a call we do about every 3 weeks. We're the Bitcoin design community. And so we're a community of designers interested in improving the user experience of Bitcoin applications. And yeah, we got a lot of designers in our community, or just general artists, creatives, and also developers who want to contribute to these discussions. So that's kind of what we do. And we have this call every 3 weeks or so, just to create a space for people in our community to socialize and to talk about, kind of casually talk about what's new and what's happening in the community.
Yeah, thanks. That's really important, Stephen. And like on that topic of like helping people like access and understand what we're doing. You had a learning Bitcoin design session, right, where we were doing some accessibility testing, and this learning Bitcoin design. These are sessions. I'm not sure what's the schedule on them, Stephen.
Well, at the moment, we were doing them like every week for a while there, just because we had a lot of kind of material we needed to cover and help people learn. Now we're doing them once a month now, but we can start doing them more frequently again if people propose topics that they're eager to learn about. But we basically either cover a Bitcoin technical topic and we try and discuss it from a designer perspective, or we just cover a topic specific to user experience design, try to help each other learn it. So yeah, once a month, and it's usually on a Tuesday. And I would check the Bitcoin design slash meta repo on GitHub to see when the next one is.
Nice, nice. And on the last one, there was like it was all about accessibility. I think even the design guide jam session had some accessibility components because there's a new page being written up, yeah, that was being written up on accessibility for the guide. And Mo, Christoph, and Jason, a accessibility expert that was in the community, was helping out with that. And what else did we have? We got accepted to speak at this event in Taiwan. Of course, we will be attending all virtually. And the question is, who is we? Who is we getting accepted? Well, it's the community, right? And anyone who wants to participate, be part of the presentation, help create the presentation, we really encourage you um, to just like reach out to myself or Christoph, or Stephen, or like just reach out, and we'll get you on board and start planning the calls for the presentation, because that event is going to be happening at the end of July, so time's going to go quick. We also have the Shock the Web hackathon. It's the second hackathon of its type. Bolt Fun is this sub community in Bitcoin design. and it's really interesting for anyone who's new. We have this concept of a sub community, like communities which have grown out of the Bitcoin design community effectively. Well, Bolt Fun is doing these hackathons. This one is called Shock the Web. It's kicking off tomorrow, and anyone who wants to make or hack on like some web Bitcoin idea, you could take part in it, and we'll be posting a bunch of stuff and spamming the channels kind of soon about that. There's some new designs for a daily spending wallet as well, so that's under review. Stephen, you've been working on that one, right? What's the status on this?
Well, it's going to sound like we're always talking about this thing because we have been polishing it up for a long time. But the basic gist is that you know we've obviously added Lightning to the guide over the past year, and then we've gone through and done several kind of refinements and enhancements to that content, and kind of like where we finally landed is that we just need the we're basing the guide around this idea of like reference designs, which are these kind of like almost like pre-built product ideas that you can take and run with. And so we're doing kind of like another round of refinements on this reference design. The idea is that it's kind of like a complete prototype for a daily spending Lightning wallet. So by daily spending, we mean it's the kind of software that you would take with you and use for, your spending in your daily life, whether that's, buying groceries or getting coffee or whatever spend on your daily life. So, yeah, it's kind of, we're trying to make this as complete of a prototype as you can that really shows you how all of the pieces of the wallet work together, and how all of the design decisions kind of support each other for a cohesive project. So, yeah, we're kind of the status of it. Like these things are always messy because you have to design it and give feedback and just see how all the pieces work together. But we've already updated several pages within the reference design, and I'm thinking within the next couple of weeks here we'll probably have it live. Um, you know how it goes. 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks trademark. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
one
Go
One thing
on.
I just also wanted to remark too is that for any of the things we discuss, this is a community call. So if anybody has any remarks they'd like to make about any of the stuff Johns and I are discussing, just raise your hand and we can lift you up onto the stage.
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to mention. So that's pretty much like the community kind of stuff that's been going on. But some of our main discussions today is going to be about some of these events that are happening, how designers can take part, what role they play, and what other opportunities and maybe even challenges that in that designer developer relationship. And the events that I'm talking about are things like these hackathons, right? And usually there's not that many designers like kind of showing up to them. And Stephen was attending one recently, Bitcoin Plus Plus, and I had big FOMO about that. I wasn't able to go, but yeah, before Stephen goes into his experience about it, maybe we can. Yeah, I want to invite you guys to like, as Stephen said, just request to speak or something. Raise your hand, and we'll get you to come up. We want it to be like an open discussion, because not just me and Stephen bickering back and forth. So yeah, Stephen, whilst you're at it, what's the how was the event?
No, the event was really good. It was organized by Nifty Nye on Twitter. She's one of the core Lightning contributors at Blockstream, and also Stakamoto, who works with her on the Base 58, which is a kind of a education company. They do classes and stuff to teach people about the Bitcoin protocol. Um, and yeah, so it was a really good event. It very like workshop focused event. So like sometimes you go to a conference and it's just like a speaker on stage talking. Sometimes it's like a panel discussion, but this one was very much more focused around workshops, and the rooms of tables and chairs, and you have your laptop set up and you can follow along with what the speaker is doing. Um, so there's a lot of interesting content there. I'd say there's definitely heavy Blockstream core Lightning presence, which is really cool. Um, because honestly, I hadn't really messed around with core Lightning much in the past. I've used LND before. I've tinkered around with Sensei and stuff, but I had never really used core Lightning. So it was cool to get to learn more about that Lightning node implementation. Um, and there was also a lot of other cool projects, ideas being represented there. In addition to just on the core Lightning side, there was discussion around channel splicing and Blockstream Greenlight. There was also people doing presentations on federated Chaumian mints, which is kind of like similar in some way to what Galoy does with the Bitcoin banking infrastructure, but it's kind of this way that you create a mint and you okay, this is going to sound strange, but bear with me for a second. You basically create like tokens. You can kind of have like a bank that has Bitcoin in it, and then you can federate it by making it so that no one person controls the entire bank. So it's kind of like a federation of key holders that control the bank, and then they can mint these kind of eCash tokens that they give to like people in their community. And the idea is that the eCash is actually incredibly private. You really can't tell who's spending the tokens. So there's a little bit of trust involved, but the idea is that by federating it, you reduce the amount of trust involved, but you get these kind of major privacy benefits to it. So it's an interesting idea people are experimenting with. Another one would be Sensei. John Cantrell 97 was there to talk about the Sensei project, which is a Lightning node based on LDK. So it was really cool seeing that project get some representation. What else? There was a lot of interesting stuff going on there, but the hackathon, there was a lot of cool ideas in the hackathon, and I'd love to kind of detail some of those projects. But maybe before I do that, give some breathing room and let Johns and or some other people comment.
Yeah, I had major FOMO about that. I was good thing they were live streaming it, but I couldn't watch it at the time. But I'm planning on looking at the recordings after all this madness is over. But no, it's good. Go ahead, go into it. We could discuss some of the projects and the ideas, and I especially want to know about like what designer representation was there because it was a big event. It had some cool graphics and stuff, or it seemed quite big. Some cool graphics and stuff. What was the design representation there, man?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay, cool. Well, I just made the mistake of getting too close to my laptop, and then my AirPods were like, "Hey, let's connect to your laptop, bro." And I don't know. I got scared for a second. Anyways, yeah. So I'd say designer representation. I don't know. I felt like I was the only designer there. I think I did see one other designer in the hackathon. So yeah, I definitely. It was marketed as a developer event, right? Like the website is btc++.dev, so it's definitely marketed as a developer heavy thing. But yeah, we need to do more to get designers out to these kinds of events. Um, I would say, yeah, I think the one project that I saw that was like, probably looked like it was done majorly by a designer was like, it was called like the Humble Pleb Stat Calculator. And it was a really interesting idea. Like, this is a cool way for designers to get involved in hackathons. Like, you don't have to code everything. This person basically submitted a Figma prototype. And basically, what they wanted to do is they wanted to create kind of like a design for kind of like how you orange pill somebody and kind of like how you, convince somebody that that Bitcoin has value, but also to like kind of take them out of like the trading mentality of like worrying about the price and trying to time the market and all this stuff, and just kind of convincing them that like your best approach is to just dollar cost average and hold on to it because it's the best money. And so they created like all these user flows um, that would be like, I think their idea was like you could kind of open source the idea and just say that any company that sells Bitcoin could use this idea. So like he's like, Strike could use it, or Swan Bitcoin could use the idea. Anybody could use the idea. But it's basically this kind of like, little educational series that kind of, I mean, I was trying to remember exactly what it was because there's a lot going on, but there was like, kind of charts and graphs that would show you like in really simple terms, like, this is how much money you'd have if, you had bought, just put $1 in a day for, the past year. So it was like real simple kind of storytelling stuff like that, but it was very effective, I think, and it was cool to just see a designer just deciding to submit something to a hackathon like that. Um, Beyond that, I don't. There wasn't a whole lot of designer involvement in the hackathon aside from myself, but I think that there were some really cool project ideas that it would be worth mentioning because I think that they can be pertinent to designers wanting to get involved in the space. So one is, I got to say, I'm really the Sensei project is becoming very interesting to me. I mean, I already liked it just because it was an interesting new project built on BDK and LDK. Um, but there was a lot of people working with it during the hackathon. There were at least two people working with it. And one interesting project is there's this app you can download called Polar. Um, and for anyone who wants to learn about Lightning Network, Polar is a really interesting app you can use, even if you're not a developer, because basically what it does is you download it and it spins up a couple of Lightning nodes for you on your computer. And it's all just using like test Bitcoin, right? It's just a local reg test, just fake Bitcoin, basically, just so you can test it. But it opens up a Lightning, LND node, a Core Lightning node, and an Eclair node. Well, somebody created a pull request to add Sensei to Polar. And I thought that was really cool because it's another node that you can start experimenting with. And Polar is really great because as a visual person, as a designer, it lets you create channels by like dragging and dropping channels between each other. So like between the nodes. So it's a really good kind of tool for learning the Lightning Network. So it's cool seeing somebody do that. But another real cool project that used Sensei, I'm pretty sure this project used Sensei, if I'm not mistaken, but it's called the Bitcoin Dev Shop. Tony Giorgio and Future Paul, they put together this project called PLN, Private Lightning Wallet, and I thought that was an interesting project for designers to think about because it has they were really trying to create like a privacy first Bitcoin wallet that kind of makes a lot of opinionated privacy decisions for the user so that the user can't harm their privacy. And they used Sensei as their backend. So I'm talking about really two things at once here. The part about this is cool with Sensei is that there's this idea that I came across at this conference, which is that Sensei might be an easier way for people to start using the Lightning Dev Kit, LDK. Because Sensei uses LDK, but Sensei has its own JavaScript API. So it's kind of like an easier way to get involved with LDK. And so for the private Lightning wallet folks, the PLN folks, they just use Sensei, I'm pretty sure. And, they just used, I think they used like, what is it? They used one of the, I think they used Flutter, which is like one of those UI toolkits, I think from Google or something, maybe Twitter, I can't remember which, but it's, one of those UI toolkits. They used Flutter, and then I think they just used like a JavaScript backend that was talking to Sensei. So it's like, hey, pretty much any modern web developer is good with JavaScript. So if you're a designer, you want to work on a Lightning Wallet project, you and a JavaScript developer could partner up and you could just build on top of Sensei. So that could be a really interesting way of starting a project. One of the interesting design decisions they made in Private Lightning Wallet is, it sounds kind of silly, but I think they had it set up so that you could only receive, you couldn't send, which is, it sounds a little strange, but yeah, apparently that's a thing. And
it's more private to receive than to send. Is that
it's more,
because you're not leaking
you're not,
your node key? Is that why?
yeah. And they weren't the only project that had it. Apparently there's like this dog eating a waffle meme now. I mean, I just can't keep up with all the memes. I feel like so old, but like
Oh,
this is,
and especially in the bear market, right? That's when we have like the most memes coming up.
yeah. So that was kind of interesting, but I think I want to say it was theirs too that had it set up so that every time you formed a channel with another node, I want to say it made a new pub key for you. I might be thinking of the Trans LND project that Ben Carmen did, but I'm pretty sure it might have been PLN where they actually made like a new pub key for every single channel that you opened. And the idea was that like, okay, if you're using Sensei, Sensei allows you to basically spin up thousands of nodes if you want to. So there's really no cost to just forming a new node for every single channel you want. So we're getting a little nitty gritty under the hood, but the point is, just from the designer's perspective, is that what you need to know is that they were making these very opinionated decisions, and they're doing it because they don't want the user to accidentally mess up and leak their privacy. So like we're going to make these decisions kind of on behalf of the user. Um, the federated Chaumian Ments stuff was cool. I really can't talk like I'm so interested in learning more about the idea. I got to be honest. The cryptography that they were working with was a little over my head, so I really can't speak to that. But I just wanted to flag that as something like if developers continue to work on the Chaumian federated eCache idea, then we are going to need design patterns for that system. So that might be something to keep an eye on as it's kind of a future roadmap kind of thing. That could be a space where designers were really needed. And I guess just the last idea I'll talk about, you know, before I kind of quiet it down for a little bit is I just I really kind of had I walked just a lot of the conversations I had at the conference. I really kind of have started to walk away with a different perspective on how we onboard people to Lightning. I've been personally a little more bullish on the idea of just, you have a little really lightweight Lightning node on your phone. And there's an LSP in the background that forms channels for you and all that. And those are all still good ideas. But, I was talking with a lot of people about Blockstream Greenlight. It's this interesting idea where, they host a Lightning node in the cloud, but you're able to keep the key on your phone. So Blockstream can't spend your funds. And they've got this, crazy containerization thing set up to where like your node can basically be asleep. So it costs them, virtually nothing in terms of compute resources to keep your node there. But as soon as somebody tries to route a payment to you, they bring your node back to life and all of that so you can receive the payment. And it's like, that could actually solve a lot of problems right now, just in terms of, being able to accept offline payments. I'm not saying I'm like abandoning, all the other ideas. I'm just saying that's an idea I'm starting to warm up to. And the people were also talking to me about, well, could you use something like Sensei for that same thing? Sensei is also really good for running all these lightweight Lightning nodes. So in theory, you could do a similar kind of setup as to what Blockstream Greenlight is doing, but you could do it with a Sensei architecture as well. Um, and, kind of future roadmap kind of stuff. When Sensei kind of becomes more integrated with validating Lightning Signer, you could basically, again, keep the key on the user's phone. And so it would be very, very similar to the Blockstream Greenlight setup. So, there's certainly caveats and trade-offs to those approaches, but I'm like, that could actually really work in terms of onboarding people to Lightning. So I'm just, I've warmed up to those ideas a little bit coming out of that conference.
Yeah, definitely there needs to be kind of like different like trust models, and most importantly, someone needs to uh, like we need to make sure we're educating the user on like what those trust models are, right? You don't want to just like drop them in and say, hey, like you have this system that's kind of like remote. It's Bitcoin, it's private, it's secure, because then it kind of like puts them into like a bad mental model of like sorry, like it gives them a bad security model. But then the big question is like, how do we like communicate some of these concepts? You and I are going into these like very heavy technical topics right now. Um, how do you make it kind of like palatable for the designer, and how do you make it interesting for other designers in our community to want to engage in these things? I hope none of this is sounding too kind of like um, too much for you guys. If anyone has any question on something that's Stephen said so far, please feel free to um, uh, jump up and ask some questions, because that's how we're kind of like addressing that problem of some of these topics being maybe um, too difficult to parse and stuff. We're trying to make this Bitcoin design guide that's kind of like more in a designer's voice, so that you could kind of like understand some of this knowledge. But I know it could still be quite heavy. Um, so Stephen, let me ask you. Um, there was someone in the community today who I think his name is Colin, and he's building this ETA wallet, right? And he says he wants to use this wallet UI kit and the guide. and is looking for like some designer feedback. And I think one of the questions that came up was like, how do designers give that feedback? Because there was a README that was a README is kind of like this GitHub document, this document on GitHub that every project would typically would have. And it usually states like how to run the project from the command line and all that. But many designers aren't really able to like have Node.js running. They don't have that context. How do we deal with that? How should Colin, for example, um, help people help designers give this feedback?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's no one right answer to that question. I think one thing that I proposed to him in the Slack was, you know, one thing that I've seen is really cool that a Blix wallet did once is um, I think Hampus had set up, his wallet architecture is, to simplify for everybody, it's based on the same code that you would use for a website at the end of the day. So he just has a copy of the wallet, like a test copy running on the Blix website. So obviously it doesn't use real Bitcoin, but you can go to the Blix website and you can just start toying around with the wallet. You can just start, going through all the screens and looking at them and all that. So that could be one way of doing it. He could take his wallet and he could just, get it running on a website and then just direct designers to the website so they could take a look at it that way. Another way could be, depending on, what platform it's running on, maybe you could, kind of create a pre-compiled version of the app. So it's like something that you can download, and maybe it runs on your computer when you download it, or maybe it, sometimes people have create are like on at least on the Apple side of things, you can create a test flight apps. So it's an app that's not available in the App Store, but you can invite your friends to be able to look at it on their iPhone by downloading the test flight. And I think that there's an Android equivalent to that. I just don't know what the name is off the top of my head. And another way, if just wants designer feedback, is it really could just be as simple. If none of those options that I listed before are good, I mean, it could just be as simple as just taking screenshots of it and just uploading screenshots somewhere. Like Figma, a lot of developers, even though I think a lot of people find Figma easy to use. Now, not everybody finds it easy to use the advanced features of it or to make beautiful things in it, right? But in terms of just like dragging and dropping pictures, I think, that's pretty easy to teach someone. So a developer could just take screenshots of their app, like take, say, 20 screenshots of all the different screens, and then they could just drag and drop those into a Figma document and share the Figma link. And then the designers could leave comments on it that way. And then another way, and I think this might be the one you suggested, Johns, was just just create a video walkthrough of it. And I think that those are very effective. I mean, there's a reason that, tutorial content has just exploded in popularity on YouTube of how-to videos for all kinds of apps, easy to hard. So you can just take do a screen recording and just kind of provide some narration on it. Like, okay, I've opened up the wallet. Now I'm going to create a new wallet. Now I'm going to, send some test Bitcoin, all of that. So, there's a variety of different ways, I think, depending on what suits this project's needs.
Yeah, I've seen Artica. They're doing the developer behind that one is very open with the design process, and that's also quite an interesting project in itself. It's Artica. There's a channel, Artica. I believe there's a channel in there, in the Bitcoin design Slack. And yeah, the developer is kind of like designing and seeking feedback and developing it all in the open. So if you want to follow along that process, it's quite accessible there. Do you know much about that project, Stephen? Because from what I understand, it's this it's a new user interface for a multi-key uh, application, Bitcoin Wallet, and it sits on top of Bitcoin Core. So Bitcoin Core being the main implementation of the protocol and the software. Um,
Yeah.
this is a user interface that now can connect to your Bitcoin Core wallet on desktop, I believe, and it will give you some additional features of like education, guidance, and also multi-key. So that's an interesting one right there.
Yeah, I'm a little familiar with it. I haven't like looked at every screen in depth, but just to give a little context to the audience, we kind of switched topics there. Originally, we were talking about a Lightning wallet that Colin posted, and then we kind of shifted to talking about another wallet that somebody's designing. That's the Arctica one, and that one is being worked on by, you'll see him as HAC on some platforms, or you'll see the full name Heavily Armed Clown on other platforms, but yeah, he's been very open with the design process. You said he's basically been using the Bitcoin UI kit. So for those who aren't aware, that's a project largely built and championed by Christoph. That's this is bitcoinuikit.com, and it's just these Figma templates for basically kind of for building the user interface for Bitcoin wallets. So HAC has gone in and he's taken the UI kit templates and he's building, like designing what he wants the user interface to look like for this wallet. And you're right, it is a multi-sig kind of thing. Um, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, multi-sig is basically just a setup where you use more than one key to control how the Bitcoin is spent. So, what that means for the user is it means more security for the Bitcoin because you're not at risk of one key being stolen or one key being lost, and then you lose your money. So Bitcoin Core, like natively, like supports all of this stuff already. If you know how to use it, if you understand the protocol very deeply. And so what he's trying to do with Arctica is create a UI on top of that that really helps people set up these multi-signature workflows. And he's even working in like time locks and things like that, which would be something like, okay, I want to like lock this Bitcoin so that it can't be spent for a year or something like that. Um, so yeah, it's been real cool. He's been real open with the design process. He joined our design guide jam session call earlier this week, and was interested in submitting some of that content to the guide. And we have this reference design in the guide. Earlier we were talking about how we have a reference design for a daily spending wallet for Lightning. Well, we also have this other reference design in the guide called a savings wallet, and it's kind of like this. It's like a multi-key wallet that lets you control your Bitcoin with multiple keys. And it really hasn't been updated in a long time. It needs a little bit of love. It needs to be fleshed out the same way that the daily spending wallet is. So I told HAC to open an issue on the GitHub, and I think that could be something that we discuss as a community. Maybe looking at his reference design and seeing kind of what we can learn from that, and maybe use some of those learnings to flesh out the savings wallet reference design in the guide. So that's a real cool kind of circular thing that's happening there. It's like okay. Christoph has been, spearheading a lot of the guide efforts, created the UI kit, and then HAC is taking the UI kit and the guide and using that to make his own product, and then we can take and look at what he's learned from that product and use that to inform the guide again. So, real cool to see that collaboration.
Okay, well, like I guess that is one of the ways in which designers can start incorporating into like these events and even these open source projects, right? If we have the UI kit, for instance, you learn about the different components in it, and if you just want to stay on the visuals, then one option is to just like focus on like learning the different components in the UI kit, why they're there. You can reference the Bitcoin design guide then. And then if you go to one of the events, you start looking at the problem that your other teammates are working on or your team is working on. And then you can start like applying the UI kit to it. Of course, it being a UI kit, it doesn't mean that you have to like follow all the rules. You could like at Article, what they're doing, they're breaking it up and they're creating the user flows and the necessary layouts that they need for their project. But it could be a very good starting point for you. And I've posted I've posted a video where Stephen with Connor, I believe, goes to oh no, sorry, it was Christoph and Connor designing a wallet with the Bitcoin UI kit. So it's right up here in the sticky thingy. Um, all right, cool. All right, so there's some other events that are coming up, and people seem kind of shy today. I'm gonna start like calling out some people in the community there
Yeah,
at
I
some
might
point though.
if I won't let you go where you're going with that, but I kind of might be kind of nice to talk about some of the work that's going on with Bitcoin Beach and Lago Bitcoin too at some point.
What's happening with Lago Bitcoin?
I just had an awesome call yesterday. They're building a POS cash register. I see
Ah,
we have Andrew and Millie in the audience who are both affiliated with those projects, and so if they'd be willing, they could talk to us a little bit about that.
yeah, yeah. I kind of missed that one yesterday, unfortunately. But great thing it's recorded. Oh yeah. Oh, there's Andrew.
What's happening? Can you hear me?
Hey Andrew. Hey Andrew. You're in like every Twitter Spaces, I realize.
Oh man, yeah, it's a good place to be. This is a community, you know. So yeah, thanks for shooting the invite. Pardon the nasally voice, feeling like shit today, but uh, to uh, to Steven's point, we had a project call yesterday, uh, and the short version is, I think, one of the big design challenges, things to solve for spurring Bitcoin communities and circular economies is making sure that receiving Bitcoin as a merchant is a seamless, frictionless, good experience. Um, and so that's kind of like, even the genesis of the Bitcoin Beach wallet, when Nicholas moved down to El Zonte and helped build that, it was testing kind of in the field with, what is it like to receive, right? And so you saw at the time there was the printed QR codes that would open Bitcoin Beach Wallet and, allow the customer to enter the amount versus the merchant. That made it easier for the merchant to accept Bitcoin, which again, you reduce friction, you increase adoption, right? And so anyway, um, we kind of wanted to level up the merchant experience for Galloway wallets, and Millie has been doing a lot of work on thinking about how to make it really easy, especially around there's a specific problem, which is I am a shop owner and I have 3 employees, and I want those employees to be able to accept Sats on my behalf to my Bitcoin Beach wallet, but I do not want to give them access to my funds, right? To send out my funds, and so what we have today is a page called it's like a tipping page, so ln.bitcoinbeach.com/agbegin, right? Would take you to mine, and you could put this in your Twitter profile. People could send you Sats. You could load it on an iPad. People could could prop it up on a iPad and have people spend, but it's not a very elegant solution for like a POS. And so Millie, maybe I can hand it over to Millie and have her explain sort of the steps and the interaction that she designed, because I think what it did was there's 2 parts to a great merchant experience, sort of for the people that we're designing for. One of them is the product itself, so a POS system that makes it easy to enter an amount, to create an invoice, receive payment. But the other one is like onboarding and education. And so what I thought was really neat about Millie's approach was she kind of designed some overlays and screens and intros and onboarding elements into the experience that I'm extremely excited about. And then the second half of the call that we had was about multi-currency support. So if you're in like Bitcoin Lake, they have Quetzals as their local currency. Bitcoin Beach Wallet and Galley wallets do not yet have support for every or multi-currency support. Something that we're kind of working on. Um, but somebody from the community in Bitcoin Lake designed a POS system. When I shut up, I'll send a couple links that you could post into the nest. But that you could go to pagar .bitcoinlake.io. You can enter somebody's username and you can create an invoice using any currency you want. So if I want to, I learned the other day that like there's a currency that is two units of this currency equals one sat, which kind of blew my mind. And so you can enter any currency, create a Lightning invoice, and pay that, which means that if you're in South Africa and you want your customers to be able to pay you in rands, or you're in Peru or you're in Brazil and you want your customer to be able to pay in reals without doing any mental math, they can do that. And so anyway, those were the things that we discussed. It was a cool call. And Millie, what you want to talk a little bit about what you worked on?
Sure, I can definitely talk about it. So as Andrew said, Bitcoin Beach Wallet, every user, when they have an account with Bitcoin Beach Wallet, they have a tipping page that they can share with people. Before starting to design, I talked a little bit with the Bitcoin Beach team because they are on the ground, so they are really able to give me like the perspective of user there. And one thing that they told me is like, I mean, they don't have a use for, or they are not aware of the tipping page, because tipping is mostly not something that is happening in El Salvador. It's not part of the culture. I feel it's mostly North American to tip. And so knowing that, I was like, okay, maybe there's also a little bit of a branding problem in a sense, because if you tell me like a tipping page, but I don't tip in my everyday life, then I'm not gonna use it. So I thought maybe it would be best to rename that page to be a sort of a lightning cash register, which gives really the sense that it's a mini like POS system where you can collect cash. And so I had like two parts in this design: is how I can make this page known by Bitcoin Beach users, and also how they can easily use. So the first thing, how I can make this page known by user, is first of all when they onboard, but when they open their app, and when this feature is going to be released, there will be a short modal appearing, saying that they have this cash register link that they can share with people, so they can collect payments on their behalf without needing to share their Bitcoin Beach wallet to them. And then it just gives them like a link that they can share and not. And also there's a little explanation of how it works. And it mentions to them also that their employees or people who are using this page that can pin it to their own screen. So when they share this link to their employees, then the employees can receive it by whatever messenger app they are using. They open the link, and then on the page there's a button right at the top, which is a CTA, which is a pin to home screen. And depending if they're on iOS or Android, then it's going to be a little bit of a different process to pin it, because on iOS they don't have that option yet to add to home screen for web apps, unfortunately. So it will just appear the series of steps that they should do for iPhone, since I don't think for most people they do that regularly to pin web pages on their home screen. So I thought that would be just a reference that could be there easily for them at all times. And if they have Android, then that process is much easier, because they just have to click pin to home screen, and then a modal will appear you want to add to home screen, and they click add, and it's done. That way they always have that page as a reference on their phone, so they don't have to go to their message, find the link again, and then open the link. So it's always there like every day on their phone. One thing that Bitcoin Lake did that it was interesting, the way they onboard people for that, is they have a physical QR code that they make available in the shops. And so basically the employee can scan that QR code and the web page is appearing on their phone. I thought it was really interesting because it sort of breaks the online, just being on the online space, but also to be like actively in the physical space like the people are in the environment. And yeah, so that was most of the process. Oh yeah, and also one other thing is like um, because I used to work in an ice cream shop, so and I'm really bad at mental math. So I had the idea as well in the POS system to have a sort of calculator, and basically they could calculate the invoice amount, and then when the amount is calculated, you just press create lightning invoice, and the lightning invoice would be created. But that maybe could be later. It's not necessarily needed for MVP because people right now in El Salvador are using a calculator, mostly a physical one, and then they enter the amount. So it wouldn't be it wouldn't break like their usual flow if we don't have that. And oh yeah, and also after the last and after the invoice is created and the invoice is paid, I gave them the option of sending a receipt that could be sent by whatever the clients give them, whether it's a phone number or email, and it will be a message that is already filled in, saying that they bought that much, and it will send a receipt. So to have a little bit this traditional merchant experience. And just maybe something to add as well that I didn't say, this process was mostly designed for solo business, 2, 3 people, those tiendas like in El Salvador. So it's not considered for larger businesses, even though that will be eventually in Galloy's roadmap, but we're not there yet. So that's it.
Thanks, Millie. And Johns, I DM'd you a couple, feverishly wrote a couple tweets just to post those if anybody's interested. That the one that popped up there is the first of all, I love just the term cash register. Like I think, I don't know, POS and tipping page. I've always tripped over those, and so I thought that was neat. Also, John's posted a link to the POS for Lake Bitcoin. You can pay to anybody's username and also the URL. You can have a unique URL. So if you pay like pagard.bitcoinlake.io/agbegin, you'll send me sats. And if you want any back, you send me a message and I'll try sending some back your way. And then the last one John's just posted up is we've been using GitHub discussions recently to capture ideas about how to extend the Gallo platform in ways that are important to people around the world. And so I think I posted the link to the discussion around multi-currency support. There is other discussions being considered, like the NFC, what you've seen with Bolt Card and other types of NFC support. Just for everybody's knowledge, this is an open source Bitcoin banking platform. And so definitely invite people to hop into our GitHub discussions, make suggestions, pick up a bounty, or hop into chat.galloy.io and just kind of do what we've seen a couple people doing recently, which is trying to kind of make it their own and solve their own problems. So lastly, if there's anything here that folks want to kind of push forward, if there's a Shock the Web hackathon starting up in tomorrow, and so there's a lot of stuff to work on here. So if there's anybody that seems particularly inspired by any of this stuff, like reach out, Millie, myself. We're super excited about it. So cheers. Any questions or comments? Happy to take them.
Thanks for the shout out there, Andrew. And Millie, yeah, thanks so much for that perspective as well. I mean, like maybe we don't have enough time for it, but I would really love to learn more about your process and stuff, how you integrate with like the developers over there and what that relationship is like. Um, but I'm not sure. Maybe Stephen wants to say something before we get into that if he's you have
No,
any
I don't.
response?
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I mean, it was great to hear about it, and yeah, I'll let you go wherever you want to go with this.
yeah, because the overall topic for today that I wanted us to explore is how how designers can participate in this. And I think, just by hearing these examples and stuff, I'm hoping that some of you guys have like some bit of context on like how you can participate in a project if you find it interesting. There's some links that are posted up there. For instance, there was a logo design, like a rebranding of the Bitcoin Beach wallet. There's this POS system and like naming things. So even if you aren't kind of like, like visual design, they like naming things or that research and that user testing part, like things that are written, and getting such kind of feedback is super important to to a project, or a team. So whether it be a hackathon or whether it be a open source project that's existing, I hope people don't feel shy, because I think like, this is our 33rd community call. I think we've done a fantastic job at like making designer education more palatable, more accessible. But I really want to see these hackathons with designers showing up. Like they're really fun, and developers shouldn't be the ones only having fun, I think. And Stephen definitely shouldn't be the only one at a hackathon, you know? Um, uh, like representing the Bitcoin design community. So if you see
Absolutely.
any of these events happening, like try to jump in and try to like inject yourself into them, I would say. Andrew, you wanted to say something?
I was just gonna say, like, if I can shout out to Millie, and her approach and the way that she set up that the cash register Figma board and the way that she introduced it. The video is up, by the way. It's in, if you go to Bitcoin Design, it's in, like, I think Stephen posted it in general, but um, she set up the problem. She set up who we're designing for. She designed a what I guess I would call interaction design, right? Like, so I think, all of us probably know the word design gets bastardized in a couple different ways. And but like I guess I would call like interaction design, where it's like it's not just about how something looks, right? Like design is about how something is going to be easier than credit cards, easier than cash, like how it's going to highlight how amazing Lightning is, and like Millie's, like the screens that she designed and even wrote copy for, did just that. And so I think that, like, maybe John's, to the question you were asking a little bit earlier about like process, Millie and myself, and I see Arvin over here, like that we are trying to make the Galloy stack friendly and welcoming for people to work on. And we're trying to also kind of take in community suggestions and needs. And I think that, again, like reach out to Millie, like look at the work Millie's doing, because um, from my perspective, and this merchant's work is actually the first project that we're working on together in this way, but I see it as a very something that can very simply be turned into like discrete requirements, and can be, a really good handoff from like, what's the problem, how are you going to design the solution, and how are you going to build it. And so one of the things that one of our goals that we're working towards is like turning the like working with Millie and folks, other designers and other people with various skills, to design solutions in ways that they could be turned into, say, a bounty of some sort. And again, the core banking platform, open source core banking platform that a lot of the Galloy team works on is not like something you just walk in off the street necessarily and start like contributing repos to, but we have an open API that anybody can use to build integrations. Actually, our team was at BCC++ and did a Zapwrite, some webhooks for Zapwrite, right? And so, like, if you think about the vision for what like banking on Bitcoin could be, and like how many products could be built, I mean, talk like peer-to-peer lending and merchant solutions, and like the list is endless. And so again, we're trying to be friendly, like a welcoming sort of community for folks that want to build something cool. We're trying to support that via bounties. We're trying to participate in hackathons and stuff like that. So that's where we are, but I think we have a lot of room to grow and way to improve. So feel free to reach out.
And we also get to like learn from one another, right? It's about the interaction between the designer and the rest of the people in the team. And developers, if any of developers are listening in, don't just like say like, hey, we need pretty design, and like expect the designer to be able to like fulfill that request. You need to talk. You need to talk about the capabilities, the constraints of the system that you're building, and you need to be able to articulate it. And that articulation can get represented in so many different ways to so many different people on your team, and even outside when you start trying to like onboard users and stuff for your project. So yeah, I see Millie wanted to say something. Go on.
Yeah, no, sorry, 100% what you just said, John. That's very, very relevant. I think also it's the job of a designer as well, because I mean, just talking from a personal perspective, sometimes I feel a little bit intimidated by developers because they know all this technical stuff, and it is like complicated and hard to understand at times. But sometimes developers don't understand that we could help them in their process, especially with testing and iterating, because it's so easy to move a pixel in Figma versus when you get into coding. So the way I see where we can help that development process is to do all this ideation and testing and user testing first at a project, and then the developer are just thinking, okay, how I'm building this thing. And sometimes the developers don't really know what the designer do. I've talked to a developer another time, and he was like, oh, I never really worked with a designer. What do you actually do? And then I explained to him that I'm usually more at the beginning of a project and ensuring that what we're designing for is the right thing. And so you don't have to design and develop at the same time, because then you're just gonna, the iteration process is gonna be much longer for you than for me if I just like design something quickly and do a prototype and test it in front of people. So I think there's also maybe sometimes this misunderstanding of what a designer role is. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
I think that's a great place to leave it off, unless Stephen has anything else to add or anyone else.
I have nothing else to add. Well said, Millie.
All right. Well, this is now our 33rd Bitcoin Design Community Call. There's going to be a 34th one in 3 weeks' time. So make sure you jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to know when the next one's going to be, obviously follow Bitcoin Design Community account on Twitter. It's the one I'm speaking from. Or you can go to bitcoin.design. That's the website, just bitcoin.design, and just follow the instructions on there to get connected to the calendar. And then you'll see the next event and any other calls we're doing on the calendar. And you can also join the Slack channel there if you're not already in it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for taking part, and thanks for your time. We'll see you next time. Ciao.